The Secret Path by Paul Brunton. Chapter 2, Part 1. Man, Science's Greatest Riddle. The philosopher sits in the gallery of the theater of life and looks down upon the play being enacted on the distant stage. It may be this exteriorized position which enables him to pass adequate judgments upon it all. Those who sit in the stalls at the passing show of this world have a nearer view than those who sit in the gallery, but they do not necessarily take a truer view of the play. The mysterious meaning of life means nothing to us. We do not permit such a problem to take entry into our consciousness. We like to relegate such an inquiry to philosophical old fogies or credulous old clergymen. The search for truth has become a bore. That which should provide us with a happy purpose is an unspeakable occupation and an unpardonable subject in polite society. God writes his message on the face of this round planet. Man, being self-blinded, is unable to read it. A few, having sight, interpret it to the others, but the human mass sneers at them for their pains. Only the intuitive few among the cultured and intelligent, and the childlike simple ones among the peasants and workers, receive the message and return love to the messengers. Therefore it is that the story of man's later history is read in tears and tragedy. But the complete story of humanity is neither a tragedy nor a comedy. No curtain falls, nor is there an end. Yes, mankind seems stricken with spiritual blindness and deafness, unable to read the mystic writing on the wall of this world, unwilling to listen to the few seers who can do this. We pass through our days stumbling and groping. Uttered warnings or wise counsel we dismiss as the fervid vaporings of cranks, just as the Jews dismissed Christ's pointed truths. In the result, men wander helplessly amid the bewildering chaos of today. We rise from the cradle of birth and grasp at life with passionate hands, but soon sink back into the passionless grave. Our little selves are all self-absorbed with the importance of our struggles and aspirations, our triumphs and defeats. Our luring possessions hold us captive, and we fret or fever ourselves on their account. We cannot help that, for we are human. But the Sphinx, rising out of Egyptian sands and surveying the mortal race of men, smiles and smiles and smiles. Yet man is a rational being and instinctively craves for a rational explanation of things. He lives in a predominantly scientific and intellectual age. All his experience is interpreted by the light of a purely materialistic reason. But life appears to draw a hard line upon the map of his own nature, leaving a vast unknown land where reason seems unable to penetrate. Reading in one of Bertrand Russell's old essays, his fine but pessimistic confession of faith, I take it as typical of the sterile attitude forced upon those scientists who refuse all hope of ever exploring the unknown land. He wrote, quote, that man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his fears and hopes, his loves and beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms. Let me start that sentence over again. Quote, that man is the product of causes which had no provision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms, that no fire, no heroism, no intensity or thought and feeling can preserve an individual's life beyond the grave, that all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast depth of the solar system. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. End quote. Such are the pessimistic thoughts which find tongue today among the intellectuals of our race. We can see the achievements of the scientists all around us in the world today. We must always admire their developed intellectuality. But yet, they can only teach us the ABC of life. They do not know the XYZ of it. Most of them are now frank enough to admit this, to confess their ignorance of the primal causes. Those who would have us fall back on common sense in these matters wish us to fall back on a pitiful reed. They forget that common sense, insofar as it is merely the general, uninstructed opinion, is sometimes synonymous with common ignorance. Where then can we go to learn the first letters of life's alphabet? We must go where humanity has always gone, where alone it can go. We must go to the seers and sages. Whilst the scientists have been searching the material universe for fresh facts, the seers have been searching their own selves and exploring their own minds for old truths. For they have come to realize that they can but recover the ancient wisdom of man. What the first seer found and recorded thousands of years ago, the last seer finds and agrees with today. But what the first scientist of the 19th century found and recorded, the last scientist of today laughs at and flings aside. The latest results of science have already laid the frigid speculations of mid-Victorian scientists in a deep tomb. Yet the scientist is so sainted by the race today that unless and until he nods approval to each separate revelation of the seer, a process which has been going on under our very eyes this last half-century, the pearl is thrown to the dust as false. Living scientists, who can hardly be called dreamers, now lend their names to the ideas of the seers. Bishop Berkeley's major doctrine was a similar view to that of the Indian absolutists. He asserted that all we know of the world is our reaction to it, our impressions of it. He made mind the measuring rod of the reality of our universe, and hence placed mind as the first and fundamental reality. Sir James Jeans, Jeans, by some brilliant efforts has shown how physical science, working from the idea that the material world is the basic reality, has nevertheless been forced to consider favorably this hypothesis of Berkeley's. The conclusions of Einstein and Whitehead have similarly helped to confirm the bishop's assertion. Jeans writes in The Mysterious Universe, quote, "All those bodies which compose the mighty frame of the world have not any substance without the mind." End quote. This Berkeleyan conclusion is again reinforced by Sir Arthur Eddington, the eminent physicist, who likewise pictures the universe as an idea in the mind of God. He even denies the actuality apart from consciousness. Sir Oliver Lodge's work in physics, as well as his investigation into spiritualism, also points to man's mind as the reality in a world of vanishing matter. Our disdainful materialists dismiss this idea with a snap of their fingers. Those scientists who do accept it become, in colloquial language, cranks. It is noteworthy, however, that the latter are in the foremost ranks of their profession and have been led to acceptance only after prolonged and profound research. One may make a little prophecy and declare that the whole army of scientists is unconsciously treading in this direction. But we must free ourselves from the self-deception that the personality possesses a true standard of consciousness. We must first create within ourselves a true humility before we can know the liberating truth. We must enter with Descartes, the clever Frenchman, into that frame of mind wherein he began one of his works. Quote, "I have held much to be true, which I now discover to be false. I have no reason to suppose anything to be more certain. Possibly everything that I conceive and believe is false. What then is true? What is certain?" End quote. Thus, the old mechanistic conception of life, which was established by the founders of modern science from the 17th century onwards, has begun to die out in the laboratory and lecture room. The physicists themselves, once the proponents of the gospel of matter, have now become uncomfortably uncertain of physical phenomena. Their extended researches have shown them what they once called inanimate matter can display certain properties which the textbooks lay down as hitherto considered peculiar to the organic alone. This is the tragedy of time. It tests all things and ideas and proves again and again the falsity of the current conceptions of the moment. And that concludes the first part of Chapter 2. And I do apologize for my voice. I've had a cold, and hopefully it'll improve. So, till soon.